important to how our future of medicine looks like and how we help learners, especially those who come from historically minoritized backgrounds, first generation students, folks maybe from international backgrounds, and how do we make sure that we are able to train and retain those who will serve the communities that really need it. So we're going to talk about the hidden versus the non-hidden curriculum and talk about how that manifests in the different spaces, the impact on it, and then how maybe we can continue to work on disrupting it. I do have to do a disclaimer. I don't feel like I know the exact answers of how we change all of medicine as far as its culture, but I'm going to do my best to say what I think might be some helpful, solutions to things that I think can be a real challenge. So a little bit about my own story. This is my amazing picture from my white coat ceremony where my hair was extra large that day. I think there was a nor'easter in Boston. I went to Tufts, and so my hair is naturally curly. So I think it like very much grew that day. But I am my personal background, I come from a multiracial, multicultural background. I'm the first physician in my family to ever go to medical school or ever do anything like this or, in pursuit of higher education. I am originally from the Inland Empire. I'm so happy to be back. I mean, I have been gone for many, many years. As Dr. Tyrrell mentioned, I was in Iowa for a long time. And although I loved many things about being a part of the University of Iowa, it is really wonderful to be back on the West Coast. As before I was in Iowa, I literally didn't know where the state was. But it was a good place. But California is amazing. And I'm so happy to be back, especially at a missional school like at UCR SOM. And so I think because of my background, when I went to medical school, I, did fine in my first 2 years, which are, those preclinical years. I wasn't like the best student, but I wasn't the worst. I was really just sort of very run of the mill, middle of the pack. But I got a huge culture shock when I went into the wards, and I realized there is a thick culture of medicine that I wasn't even aware existed. There were so many parts of what we'd call the hidden curriculum that I didn't know existed and how people succeeded and why they succeeded. And it's thick. We have a really big culture in medicine. And those of us who might come from the outside, and many of you who might be feeling this as well, that nobody kind of told us some of these rules that existed. But I think because of growing up in sort of this multicultural space, I was able to pick up, fortunately, some of those characteristics, and I had some amazing mentors. And because of this, I did extremely well on the wards and was succeeded. But some of the culture of medicine I knew I didn't like and I didn't want to replicate. And so not all students who come from backgrounds similar like mine and maybe similar to yours are able to do that and perceive some of the differences or how to fit into the hidden curriculum. And so it can be a real challenge. And there's some data that shows that it can be problematic. So what is the hidden curriculum? So it's, obviously we have all the formal lectures, the competencies, the objectives. We have a very, very, big formal curriculum, which I think you're all aware of. But we have the informal curriculum, which exists, which are the hallway conversations, how we talk about things. The hidden curriculum is really those underlying messages that exist and are transmitted through our culture, and the norms, the hierarchy, the routines that happen in medicine. And, my partner, when I was in medical school, his father was a doctor. And I remember really seeing, oh my gosh, he knows how to do this so much better because he understands those unwritten rules. Similarly, at my last medical school, as far as the leadership in that medical school, I think half of the deans, their fathers were either deans or chairs, department chairs in the medical school. Not to say that they weren't amazing and they didn't work hard, but I think when you have a lot of examples of how medicine works and having, mentors and having connections and understanding all of the rules that, that can be really helpful on your career trajectory, which maybe those are things that not necessarily all of our students have. And as you all know, UCR is amazing. And I love so many pieces about it here because we are a missional institution. We are here to serve the Inland Empire, as you all know very well. And here in the Inland Empire, many people, come from backgrounds that have not been, well served by healthcare at times. Um, we have we don't have enough physicians currently in the Inland Empire that we need. We're an underserved space, so lots of underserved medicine, and we are trying to build physicians to serve that population. And in that, as many of you know well, there's really good data that those who come from backgrounds who might be underrepresented oftentimes are more willing to serve underserved populations. Those who are first generation, those who come from lower income backgrounds, those who are from the area are more likely to, stay here and serve those populations. And so those, as part of our mission fit criteria for our admissions, we're often targeting students who have those types of backgrounds. And because of that, there are some concerning statistics as far as who stays in medicine, particularly through medical school and through residency. So underrepresented medicine residents, so those who come from historically minoritized backgrounds, are twice as likely to have attrition, so to be dismissed or withdraw from residency. And Black residents, unfortunately, show some of the highest attrition rates, 10% plus in surgical training, which is really, really unfortunate. As there's also in the medical school attrition by identity, those who are Hispanic are 1.4 times more likely to leave medicine and medical school. Those who come from low income backgrounds, those who are from under-resourced neighborhoods. And if you have all three risk factors, it's 3.7 times more likely to not make it out of medical school. And I've been, unfortunately, in many committee meetings, both on the medical student side and the resident side, and where we know that the data showed that disproportionately folks who are, getting kicked out of residency or who are resigning often are cited under things like professionalism, as well as other reasons that might have to do with not understanding or having the mentorship to navigate the system, and some of that having to do obviously with the hidden curriculum. So I think this is a really, really practical topic because I've seen it in practice. I had one of my recent mentees, someone I knew, he was since his freshman year of undergrad, since he was 17 years old. He's now almost 30. I've mentored him for many years. He just got kicked out of his orthopedic residency as a third year. And from what it sounds like is likely having to do with just not a culture fit, meaning, again, not being part of for many different reasons, but I know him well. I know he's an amazing and brilliant, brilliant physician and someone who cares deeply. And so I worry about these hidden curriculum pieces and how that affects whether or not people are even able to stay in medicine. So some other reasons, as I mentioned, first gen and low income learners report greater distress from hidden curriculum signals when this has been studied. There have been disproportionate evaluation variability. So, again, worries around mistreatment and microaggressions. So this is an important space. And the hidden curriculum is really about power. It's not what we teach learners, but we teach who belongs, who is valued, how success is defined, and what behaviors are rewarded in medicine. So what are, at least from what I've observed and what some of the literature speaks about, what are some of the pieces of the hidden curriculum in medicine? And one of them is the hierarchy of medicine. So I had no idea about how strict and what the hierarchy was when I first started in medical school. I knew that, obviously there was a reverence to attending physicians and those who finished residency, but I didn't realize there was like this significant order. And this is even missing some pieces. I don't think I have fellows in here in some of the other kind of groups, and mid-career faculty versus junior and senior attendings. But it's a huge hierarchy. And I remember observing for the first time on the wards that literally as people are walking down the hall in the hospital, they're walking down the hall in order of hierarchy. the Mets, the least the first and second years are trailing the third and fourth years, and then there's some residents, and then they're attending is sort of like walking down and leading the pack, or how people sit even at the table during noon conference, and it's sort of in the order of the hierarchy of that particular department. And so a lot of students don't understand the hierarchy and how strict it can be. I didn't understand, for example, how challenging it was if you called the wrong person by their first name, that there are rules that, senior attending physicians are always called Dr. So-and-so, but junior attendings might call the senior attendings doctor, but not vice versa. And same with the residents versus the students, and understanding whose titles should be used and all of those things. Those are all part of the hierarchy, and I had absolutely no idea. And so oftentimes, I, am literally teaching the students about the hierarchy, and what that means and what that looks like in their everyday life on the wards. Another piece of the hidden curriculum is that the students that I noticed that were doing the best on the rotations, especially my first rotation, and I was like, how do I do this? How do I, make sure I can be successful on the wards, were the ones who projected the most confidence. And so there was this message that confidence is equal to competence, which we know is not true. Because I remember the students who were projecting all this confidence, and I was like, I don't think they're smarter than me at all, actually. But the fact that the attendings liked them more, they graded them better because they just acted like they belonged there. And it's really hard because, like, culturally for me, talking a lot about myself or pretending not giving significant reverence to, those who might be older than me, or, just that aura of feeling strong, especially when I'm feeling, not so secure at the moment because I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. That felt very, very odd to me. And for some folks, it was natural, or I just looked at the guy who was doing the best and I was like, okay, I just need to literally copy this. And it worked for me. I just sort of pretended like I was supposed to be there, and really had to watch my mannerisms when people were pimping me or asking questions of me publicly. I had to not smile, but really try to say things that I thought I knew. And so assertive students can be seen as strong, quiet can be seen as unsure. I actually just was helping with the sensitive exam, OSCE, well, not OSCEs, but preparation with a lot of our students. And I could tell who, sort of projected confidence. I was like, oh my gosh, I can tell they're going to do some, really, really well in the wards. And the ones that were really hesitant, I was like, oh no, this is going to be potentially an issue for them. And so it is sometimes mistaken for readiness. And so how do we help first gen or other learners who are often taught to be humble, who might avoid speaking unless certain? Sometimes people are, just asking. We're asking our students just to see what they're front of knowledge, but if they're not feeling certain, they aren't going to answer any questions. And then we think, oh, do they actually know anything? And then the fear of being wrong publicly. So knowledge does not always equal visibility. Never complain is another piece that I remember observing as part of the hidden curriculum. And so endurance equals professionalism. I remember being a resident and, us getting a call, I think at 4:58, but right before we were about to change into a night float system. And I remember telling my attending at the time, I think it would probably be appropriate for the night team to take this. I remember not seeing my husband, I think, for 2 or 3 weeks at that point because the residency was really crazy. And he was a resident too, and there was just a lot going on. And so I remember saying that. And then I got just torn apart in my evaluation that, Dr. Martinez doesn't care about patients. She doesn't like residency. She doesn't want to help people because I said, well, this is, basically a turnover point. I think it would make sense, 15 minutes before shift if night team takes the last patient. And so they're, and just saying that, which was like a brainstorming idea, was thought to be complaining. I've also had other students that I was at their I don't want to say their hearing, but their meeting for decisions around whether or not they were going to be kicked out of medical school because they were telling one of the residents, well, I really thought that we were going to see more of this, and I'm a little concerned that we didn't get to do that. And the resident completely wrote them up for many, many reasons, including that they were completely unprofessional because they complained to them that they were a little bit disappointed in how the rotation was going. And that was a real problem, and they were seen as hyper unprofessional. That same resident, one of the other things they were written up for is, and I think, again, this is, I think, another hidden curriculum thing. The resident asked them, oh, do you want to do this? And they said, no, because they didn't realize that that wasn't a real question. And because they didn't understand that that wasn't a real question, that you can't really say no, oh, when, do you want to do this particular thing on the ward? That they didn't seem eager or, again, professional. And so, we all went through this, praising learners who tolerate harshness. So some of the takeaway messages that silence is safer than speaking up, which can be, a challenge. Connecting and networking. And so, um, uh, one of the things I didn't realize, again, sort of with that example of so many of my colleagues who were in leadership positions had parents or other folks who were in leadership positions, and that can be really helpful in the who you know. And as I've gone through medicine, I realized so much of medicine is who you know, who you're connected to, how you build those connections. And oftentimes, as you probably know well, the mentors aren't chasing mentees, that the mentees really have to pursue mentorship, have to pursue folks who will be in their corner, have to do a lot of self-advocacy, asking for opportunities, and even knowing how to do it specifically. What are the types of emails that you do? How to ask good questions to attending so that you can have that good connection. All of those types of things can be really challenging to people who might not have any, already have connections in medicine or know how to network effectively. And so many learners can assume that just working hard enough is good enough, but you really, really, really need those connections and networks. And that might not be something folks know automatically. Professionalism policing. And so I've seen a lot where people will say or have nearly been kicked out of residency because they're not professional. And professionalism is, of course, extremely important in medicine. We're in a, we need to be highly ethical and be professional and all of those types of things as physicians. But sometimes people will say, oh, this is the way to be professional. I remember a colleague at one time calling me out, another senior leader, when I was interim associate vice president of the healthcare system, saying, well, you're not being professional, because she didn't like something that I did, even though I don't think it had anything to do with professionalism. But you can kind of say anything is unprofessional, and it can be excused to target people depending on what they say and what they do. And so sometimes, and it's kind of sad, a lot of our students who might come from minoritized backgrounds, come from, have Black identity, all of them will talk about, not all of them, but many of them through the years I've heard talk about that they feel like they must, change their hair for a particular, picture before residency interviews, because if they have, locks or braids, they might be seen as unprofessional and not be taken seriously for an interview. And so what is considered professional dress, not having any cultural dress is part of that as far as medicine goes. Tone policing, saying that people are too emotional when advocating for patients. I remember as a medical student having a Spanish-speaking patient, and they did not have a nurse at the time who spoke Spanish, and they were trying to teach this new type 2 diabetic with severe diabetes how to use insulin without any Spanish. And I remember having to advocate and getting in trouble for that, and saying, well, we just need to get this person discharged, and people not wanting to take their time and do something that was like right by the patient. And then me getting in trouble for potentially advocating. Fortunately, I got out of that, but I had to fight for that and fight for the patient. So authenticity. So some of the hidden messages around that is authenticity. It can be risky, or cultural identity may be penalized. Bias towards patients. And, I think things have changed. It's been over 20 years since I did started medical school, but I remember that we were allowed to practice more if patients were not fully English speaking on certain things, or if women were under, having procedures under station. They're like, oh, do you want to practice a bimanual exam? And all sorts of horrible things, that saying that if people who come from backgrounds who, might not be able to advocate for themselves are for us to like practice on as medical students, which is very, very, very concerning. But it was part of, honestly, when I was in medical school, those were some of the things that we were told explicitly by well, what, you can do that on this patient, but they would never offer that opportunity for another patient, if that makes sense. And so I've heard some patients be called non-compliant very easily when I'm questioning why are they given that particular label. I'm spending less time or teaching on patients who with Medicaid or limited English proficiency, jokes about patients who are obese or have mental illness issues or substance use issues. I'm presenting privately patients as good cases versus social admits. Those were things that I remember noticing a lot when I was in medical school. And so so some of those hidden messages is social status influences care, bias can be normalized, and empathy can be selective. Work-life boundaries. And I was even in a meeting recently with a colleague who I absolutely adore, who's amazing, who's extremely dedicated to his patients. But he was sort of bragging, except that his wife, not bragging, but really sharing that, oh, his wife is upset with him because he hasn't taken a vacation in 4 years. And I'm like, why is that something to brag about? I don't think that is, we wouldn't say those things. I'm a family physician. I wouldn't say that's a good thing to my patient if they said, oh, well, I haven't taken a vacation in 4 years. And so that personal needs can be weaknesses. So you being praised for, basically not taking care of your own needs and celebrating burnout as dedication. So that can be, not all physicians are like, and for any of these things, again, not all physicians are like this, but these are some of the messages sometimes can be seen. So self-neglect equals commitment, rest equals lack of dedication, and personal life must be hidden because then it seems like you're having too much fun. And even still, I feel that way. I work very hard. I am extremely dedicated. I give my evenings, I give my weekends. But when I'm not working, we are traveling. We are having fun. And oftentimes people are like, wow, you seem to do a lot. And then I feel embarrassed that I do a lot because I don't maybe look as like I'm as hardworking and as dedicated as I need to be if I talk about all of our amazing travels, which we have coming up. I'm so excited. So fit language. So fit often refers to like culturally familiarity. I don't know if you've ever seen Pearl. This is a short from Pixar. It's a really interesting short. So if you happen to have Disney Plus, you can watch it. But basically, it's about a ball of yarn who ends up going into this corporate company, this fake corporate company, and not fitting in. And in order for her to fit in, she actually knits herself into like this suit. And so she feels like she can fit in and changes a whole bunch of stuff about herself. Sometimes I've seen it that certain departments or residency programs or places in the medical school that everybody has the same hobby or everybody likes to drink a certain drink together, or everybody, there's all of these background sharing, or everybody is a golf player, all of these different cultural norms. And if you don't come from that background, you feel like a significant outsider. And I've heard people say, oh, well, they really fit, which means that they're just like us. And so what does that mean if somebody isn't just like us? And that can certainly be an issue. So one of the things around fit is first gen learners may be unfairly judged, or folks who come from backgrounds that might not be similar. So what are some of the things that we can do? And I have actually a lot of guilt about this. I help to lead our healthcare leadership uh, program here at the medical school. And, a lot of the things I don't particularly love about some of these hidden curriculum pieces or some of the cultural, pieces of medicine. And I don't want to just teach students how to fit in, but I feel like I'm doing students a disservice if I'm not saying the quiet part out loud and helping them figure out how to navigate within a medical culture. And so one of the things I do is literally make the hidden rules explicit. We get pretty granular from how to introduce yourself, to promote yourself well, how to ask good questions to attendings so that you're able to network, how to write emails in a way that will get you an actual response, and what does a good email look like, and what does a bad email look like. And I literally pull up all the bad emails I get through the year where I know that the students would be completely ignored based on how they wrote that email. We talk about titles. We talk about, who has what title, who has what power, within the school, all of those different things. So really saying those quiet things out loud. I was really fortunate. I became an assistant dean pretty early in my medical career. And I had a mentor who was the executive dean at the medical school. And we would have, and the dean at the time of the medical school I was at was Paul Rothman, who was he then went left and became the dean and, vice president at Hopkins Medical School. And so lots of intimidating, extremely smart folks in these rooms. And I was a pretty junior faculty in a senior leadership position. And she would take me aside after every major meeting we would have in the corporate boardroom at the hospital and say, did you see when that person said that? Why do you think that person said that? And you see when they said this? And so it would explain the political dynamics of the meeting to me and the power structure. So I would know better how to insert myself. And so those things are invaluable. If you are able to offer folks some feedback, like this is how letter of recommendations really work, or this is how I would absolutely approach you. It seems like you haven't had a lot of opportunities. This is how I would approach it. This is what is expected when you do some networking, and how to network and where you should be networking, and have you attended the right conferences. Like if you can think about those things to some of the learners, it really is helpful because transparency reduces inequity. Teach hidden skills. Again, I wish that it wasn't the part of the culture that you have to be confident or present confidence. But we talk how, so if you can be specific, like, let me talk to you about how to, present confidently. Or I remember an attending pulled me aside on my, OBGYN rotation. It was like, the reason why you didn't get to participate in this delivery is that you didn't run in and immediately put all the stuff on and assume that you would be a part of what was going on. So you just need to do that next time. And I was grateful that he sort of pointed it out clearly to me, like, no, this is what you need to do if you want to do well. And so, so teaching students how to advocate for themselves, how to advocate the hierarchy. I still, even for myself, when I'm working in other systems above me, ask my mentors, okay, there's this question and I'm trying to get something done. How do you think would be the best way to navigate it? How to recover from mistakes. So let's say you make a mistake. How can you sort of redeem yourself in those spaces? I mean, these are learned skills, not personality traits. Some folks, it might come to them more naturally, but these are actual skills that can be taught. And everybody has the ability to potentially do these things. How do we build psychological safety? And it's hard. I don't think medicine was always built under the guise of psychological safety for everybody around, to be them authentic selves and to be able to speak openly. That has not always been my experience. It has in certain places in medicine, but not always, especially when you're in certain parts of the power structure and the hierarchy. So, as faculty, you can invite questions, thank students for speaking up. Avoid shaming, normalize uncertainty. Mistakes are part of learning. We're all learning here. So I think the more that we can sort of normalize those things, the better. I'm very proud one of our senior associate deans, talks about, failing a big test at some point. And I think that's very meaningful when people can normalize that some of us have failed, because all of us have failed at some point at something, and saying that you can recover, that there are ways to navigate this, to encourage folks to be there and to be present, especially for those who might be shy or timid or, not culturally feel like, oh, I can just sort of insert myself, especially when I'm not feeling certain. Normalizing struggle. And so everybody struggles. I think medical training is hard. I think medical school is hard. I think residency is hard. A fellowship is hard. Being a faculty member is hard. I think it's all hard. It's good. It's important. I'm so glad I'm doing it, but it's not easy. And so, I think giving messages explicitly about how people belong, that needing help is normal, it can be really, really powerful for students. And I remember when attendings normalized some of that for me, I didn't feel so alone. Oftentimes on the wards, as I share with, or in clinics, in the clinical space, oftentimes I share with students, you're often going to feel like the stupidest person there, not because you're stupid. It's that a lot of medicine comes with time and whoever's been doing it. The more you do it, the more you know, and the more you're able to do it. So trying to have those conversations. Being very explicit about expanding mentorship access. So not all students know how to find mentors. And so I work very hard, and I'm sure many of you as well offer mentorship very openly. If you want to sit down, I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to look through things. I'm happy to talk about things. And so, if you're working with students, potentially targeting the ones that maybe look like they're not the superstars in the sense of, needing an additional support, and connecting students to those networks. Many of us, medicine is big but small. I know so many people, many of you know so many people as well, that you're able to connect people to when they're looking for specific specialties or personalities or type of care or particular passions or research interests. And access should not depend on insider knowledge to get mentorship. But oftentimes it is that, students have to really, really put in the effort themselves. But hopefully, with us being as proactive as we can, that can be helpful, which many of us are. Reward growth, not performance. I feel like when I was a third year, we were immediately thrown on stage and then thrown on, 6 weeks later or 3 months later, you're thrown onto a different stage and you were immediately sort of thought to like know how to perform and perform well. And that polish, the people were the most polished, the most kind of got it already and knew what they were doing, were the ones who were likely going to get honors on those particular rotations. But praising effort, improvement, growth, especially after, tangible feedback, I think is really, really important. And that growth mindset that promotes belonging. So not just praising when folks already show up super polished, but seeing when people can grow, which they certainly often can. And then we know this already, and I know a number of you who are in this call, and I'm always, so impressed with so many of you, and I'm so impressed with so many of the faculty here at UCR. But we are the culture carriers, and as attendings, I mean, I made lots of notes when I was in med school, like I'm never gonna do that. But the culture of medicine is pretty strong, and there's definitely times when I'm like, ooh, who am I becoming? And what's going on here? And that I need to check myself, and why am I grumpy already at this student just because they don't know what the heck is going on, or whatever. And so people watch, or at least I was certainly watching how folks discuss patients, respond to stress, how we talk about each other, how we talk about other specialties. I have seen a thread of social media posts from social media influencers who are physicians or students or residents talk about the amount of sort of trash talking that we do about different specialties, and saying how could you do this or that, or so on and so forth. But my hope is that through the years we'll continue to have a place where folks feel like they can bring them whole selves, no matter what that looks like, no matter what background they come from, and be able to give care to all the patients. So behavior teaches louder than lectures, and that has been my experience. one of the things I hear sometimes is people say that, we've really lowered the standards in medicine, and we're not lowering standards in medicine, but we are removing invisible barriers. And when we can make this hidden curriculum more visible, we give our learners a fair chance to succeed. Again, because we know that folks who come from different backgrounds are more likely to serve the patients that we need, particularly here in the Inland Empire. One of the quotes I think that's really important is talent is equally distributed, but opportunity and insider knowledge is not. And so I think I truly believe this, that there is talent everywhere. And so many of our students are so talented, and our residents and other folks. But that those opportunities to do our best and all of that insider knowledge is not distributed equally amongst everybody. And so how do we as medicine and as a school continue to try to dismantle that? And that is my goal. That's why I'm here, and this is why I'm doing this. Not that I'm perfect, and certainly not that I have all the answers, but I think it's a really important part of who we are and how we move forward. So that is that. Let me unshare, but I'm happy to answer any questions or thoughts.
If you have any comments or want to share your own experiences or have any questions for Dr. Martinez, we've got time for that.
Did did any of this aspect of hidden curriculum ring true to you? And are there other aspects of the hidden curriculum that I didn't mention?
I don't know if I can speak, but hi, Dr. Martinez. Sorry for the
Hey.
noise in the background. But I had like a lot of experiences with this, just working in the clinics as a medical scribe, and I would have sometimes physicians yell at me, or things like that, and I learned a lot of that stuff that's come up again, and I just learned how to navigate it well. So I think this was like a really, really cool discussion and talk. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Manny. And our hope is that we continue to improve the culture of medicine. And so, yeah, I always have this guilt as I'm teaching people how to survive it, that ultimately we should be dismantling some of it. But it's this balance of maybe doing both.
How do you address the first gen students that might have imposter syndrome in trying to build up their confidence and their communication and all the things you talked about when, I never went to medical school, hashtag not that kind of doctor, but I was first gen to college and I know I felt like everybody there knew what was going on except me.
Mhm. It's hard. Imposter syndrome is really tough because some of it comes from yourself, and some of it, Sunny Nakai, who's a dean at CUSM, she often calls it belonging deprivation. That sometimes it has to do with you, and sometimes the literal environment makes you feel like you do not belong because of how it is structured, and so belonging deprivation. Um, there's a couple of things. At least for those who I mentor, I often try to give folks, concrete, objective examples. So, for example, we don't accept anyone here to the School of Medicine who doesn't have data and evidence that they're going to be successful getting through the medical curriculum and passing step one. There's tons of data from the AAMC of who's going to likely pass step one, who's going to likely, do well in a curriculum, and all of our students meet those metrics. And so I remind them of it. You're going to be okay. Look, there's all, so having mentors to help, to feed into that. I think we've had times in some of our smaller group sessions where we have students write down all the objective things that they've done. And so it's not just a feeling, but look at all the things that you've done and actually accomplished. Um, and then, yeah, but it can be a real challenge. And I think, in medicine, especially like on third and fourth year, when you're hopping from brand new environment to brand new environment to a brand new environment, it can be really hard to think, oh my goodness, I belong here. I think I should do well. I remember, so I grew up in Rialto, and there were, I think, 3 Denise Martinez's in my junior high class. And I was like, oh, so it's a pretty common name. There's lots of us. And I remember going to medical school and my first day being, did they choose the wrong Denise Martinez? Because I legitimately thought that I wasn't, the one that they chose, but I was. And I got into lots of medical schools. And yes.
Yeah,
I
I
see.
had a similar experience when I was in my doctoral program where I thought, wow, they must have really been scraping the bottom of the barrel that I got in. And my jaw hit the floor when they came in. We were all freaking out about our exams. And they said this was a record year for admissions, and we selected you because we knew that you would be successful. And I think that's a message that really did resonate with me as a first gen, not only to college but to graduate school. The idea that this was a competition and I won it, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah, and I
exactly.
mean, think about the thousands of applicants we get every year for medical school. I know a couple other people had things they wanted to say.
So, Dr. Calderon said, yep, resonates. Um, part of the curriculum, I thought part of the hidden curriculum is learning to read the room, growing up in certain cultures like my Mexican culture. You learn to join the culture. Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, and yeah, it's it's a real thing. Any other thoughts or questions?
Feedback, not so much around getting into graduate school. I host fellows and residents at a clinic site, so I'm not a part of the election process. But I like to say when the fellows or students have their rotation at our clinic site, I always say, look at when you are interviewing or when you are going places, look at what the lobbies look like. Look at what information, what do the pamphlets look like? So when you're interviewing, you get a little bit of a sense of what's the community culture like where you're serving, right? If there's no handouts in other languages, if you're at a children's clinic, which I'm at, if the toys have no diversity in the toys, this is going to give you some insights into how well does that match the environment you want to be in. Um, I just think it's important. And then how are you greeted, right? And so we work really hard on having our fellows and residents greet our family members and offer them coffee or water. It doesn't matter that you're a doctor. Like this is about getting to people at their level and having human exchange. Um, and then they learn like, oh my gosh, I got so much information from this patient. I've never done this before. I said, well, offer all your patients water or coffee. And it's amazing what that can do. So I think the culture is also um, clinic based. Like what's the clinic? What's the agency that you're working in? So I think it's nice to kind of look through that lens as well. Um, just for thought, for feedback in terms of like, what do you need to do? But also you're interviewing them. What should you be looking for, right? They might say the right things, but is that what you're seeing taking place?
Oh, that's really powerful. Thank you for that. And
For
yeah, that's your
sure.
amazing insights to give to and skills to give to the residents and fellows. That's wonderful.
Dr. Martinez, you have done an excellent job covering all. I think you covered most of the hidden curriculum. Do you hear me?
Yes, totally.
Okay, okay. So one thing I think I want to share is normalizing the struggle. I think it is very important, especially in the. I work in the inpatient setting, and it is not demanding work schedules. Just making sure that it is common. Everyone will go through that, and we support each other is very important message. I felt definitely put them at the ease, and they can reach out to us, if they need any help. So that really takes away the barrier between the attending and the residents and the students, that we are with them and we are also having the struggle. It is not just them. So
Yeah,
I
well
thought that
said.
is really
Well said.
helpful.
Yeah, no, thank
And
you.
also
Well,
the behavior teaches more than the lecture. I also agree with that. Regardless of how many times we tell about the sign outs or anything, I think they received well when I go with them and sign out to the next team. So
yeah,
thank you so
thank you.
much for.
Thank you so much. Well said.
And of course, as an educator, I love that you bring up growth mindset. It's something that I teach in all my workshops as well. I think it's so important, this idea that, you're not just praising for perfection, you're praising for growth and how people are overcoming uh, challenges and are meeting the challenges of that everybody has to go through that. It isn't, I think sometimes students look at all of you and they think you were born at where you are, right? That they so look up to you that they think you can do no wrong. And it's sometimes helpful, I think, to humanize the experience a little, to share, yeah, I struggled with this, and here's what I did, and here's how it helped me. And, you'll get through this too. I think that's all growth mindset language. And I love that you brought that into it. Are there any other comments or questions? Oh, go ahead. Rupa, did you want to say something else? Any other questions or comments?
Hi, Dr. Martinez. Thank you so much for a wonderful lecture. I'm I work at Kaiser. I mentor some of the LACE medical students from UCR, and it's been such a pleasure to mentor them and hear their stories. Um, I everything you said just really I think our backgrounds matter so much in our upbringing, and I can't help but notice that most of us here are women. And I think, as women, like there's a disparity in income, disparity in leadership positions, even as attendings now. If you look around and see, who has those positions that influence others, and policies, like in leadership, it tends to be men. And I think your lecture, oh man, I would have benefited from this, like even as an undergrad at UCLA, where as a Mexican girl, like I went into culture shock, and I see people who look nothing like me, and I struggle, and I was one of those who were, subject to dismissal. As you said, the statistics for brown and black students, how they have a higher rate of attrition, like I was on there. And so and I think that it continues from undergrad into medical school and into attending ship, this feeling that, oh, maybe I'm not maybe I don't have all the pieces right yet to go out there and put myself out there into these leadership roles. So I think that it's really important to teach medical students early on so that they don't have these fixed notions or ideas that may be culturally inherited, like women are supposed to be, as you said, humble. Just all humble, stay quiet, don't put yourself out there unless you absolutely know the answer. You stay in the background. I think there's definitely a big cultural piece that if we don't, um, you know, try to be curious and examine with the students, it might persevere throughout the rest of their life and limit our opportunities. So thank you for a wonderful talk. I was so excited for today.
Oh, thank you for being so kind, and thank you for your mentorship for the students. That is huge. And no, that's a big deal. And having mentors like you is such a benefit. So thank you. Thank you for that. And yeah, no, thank you for your comments as well and sharing.
You're
I'm here for that.
welcome.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I want to say again a big thank you to all of you. I know how precious your time is, and I really appreciate that you spent some of it with us today. And I also want to give a big thank you to Dr. Martinez for such an outstanding and important talk. So please join me in thanking her for this great talk tonight. And everybody, that's wonderful. Thank you. I love seeing those little hand
Thank
clappies.
you. Thank you.
Thank you again. Everybody have a wonderful evening.